When my husband Bob was transferred abroad, my mother-in-law, Catherine, took away our house, leaving me and my 2-year-old daughter with nowhere to go. I ended up taking her to the park, feeling lost and unsure of what to do next. Suddenly, police officers surrounded us and asked me to come to the station. I followed them in the pouring rain, shivering from the cold. At the station, I was met by someone unexpected. My name is Emma, and I'm about to turn 35. I met my husband Bob at work, and after dating for a year, we got married. I quit my job when we got married, and 2 years ago, we had our daughter Lily. We used to live with Bob's mother, Catherine, after her husband passed away and she had knee problems. We all decided to buy a new apartment because it was easier for Catherine, who had trouble walking. We chose an apartment with an elevator, which was cheaper and more convenient than buying a house. Bob's job often requires him to travel or move, but we were told he wouldn't be transferred for a while after we bought the apartment. Even so, he travels for work about once a week, which is stressful for me with our young daughter. At first, Catherine helped with childcare, but now she doesn't do anything to help. She just leaves her dishes and cooking utensils around, which makes extra work for me. By the time I get to them, the food has dried and is hard to clean. Even when I ask her to rinse her dishes, she just apologizes and says she'll do better next time, but nothing changes. I've noticed she only rinses her dishes when Bob is around. At first, I thought it was fine because Catherine would occasionally rinse her dishes, but now I see it differently. I believe she's intentionally making things difficult for me. For example, she'll ask if I need anything from the store, and when I say no, she later says she actually needed something, which happens quite often. I knew moving was hard on Catherine because of her bad knees, so I tried to help as much as I could. But now I'm starting to feel less willing to assist. I considered talking to Bob about it, but he's already stressed from work, and I didn't want to add to his worries. Catherine's behavior started soon after we moved in together and has been going on for several years. When I talked to a friend about it, she said it sounded like Catherine is bullying me and suggested that I should talk to Bob about it. I thought Bob might help if I talked to him about the situation. There was a chance Catherine, who has no family, might end up in a care facility if things didn't improve. I felt like I should try to endure the situation for now, but then something happened that changed my perspective. One day, I planned to drop off Lily at my parents' house. They love her and often have her over for sleepovers. They invited me to stay over too, but I was worried about leaving Catherine alone, so I declined and went back home. When I arrived at the apartment, I realized I had left my keys at home. At first, I was worried, but then I remembered Catherine was there, so I rang the intercom. There was no answer, which was strange. I waited outside for a while, but Catherine never came to the door. It started to get dark, so I followed another resident inside the building and tried the intercom again. Although I could hear it ringing, Catherine still didn't respond. After waiting by the door for a while, I heard a faint sound from inside, which meant Catherine was indeed home. I tried calling again, but she still didn't come out. Feeling frustrated, I decided to stay at a nearby motel for the night and planned to return when Bob was back from his business trip. When Bob returned, I told him what happened. He was upset on my behalf, but Catherine just brushed it off, saying she might not have heard the intercom because she's getting old and her hearing isn't as good. When I finally got back into the apartment, I picked up my keys and went to get Lily from my parents' house. My parents reassured me, saying it sounded like Catherine was deliberately making things difficult for me. They reminded me that I could always come back if it became too much. Their comforting words made me emotional, but I quickly wiped away my tears in front of Lily and went home. For a while, there were no more issues with Catherine, but then Bob's international transfer was finalized and it turned out to be a permanent move, not just a business trip. Just as we had finally bought a new place, now this unexpected assignment came up. Bob asked if I thought it would be best for Lily and me to stay in the U.S., but I was unsure about living with his mom, Catherine. Considering the potential stress for Lily, I decided it would be better for us to stay in the U.S. Soon after, Bob left for Europe. Although he was worried about us, he was too busy with work to think about it much. So it was just me, Lily, and Catherine living together. As soon as Bob left, things with Catherine took a turn for the worse. A storm was approaching, making it dangerous to go outside, but Catherine dropped a bombshell on me. She said that now that Bob was gone, it would be better if Lily and I moved out. I was shocked. Catherine said she couldn't relax with us in the house and asked us to leave immediately. I couldn't believe her audacity. I had always tried my best to make things comfortable for her and treated her like family, but it seemed like we were just an afterthought to her. Before I knew it, Catherine had kicked Lily and me out of our own home. No matter how much I knocked on the door, she wouldn't let us back in. Feeling lost and confused, I carried Lily through the pouring rain to a nearby park. There was some shelter there, but ideally, I would have gone to a motel or back to my parents' house. Unfortunately, I had left my wallet and phone inside the house, so I felt helpless. I sat in the park, trying to figure out what to do next. I'm not sure how long we were out in the pouring rain, but I started to doze off from exhaustion and cold. Even though it was summer, it was freezing, and I worried that Lily and I might catch a cold. The only option seemed to be to walk to my parents' house, which was a 3-hour walk away. While I was thinking about what to do, I noticed 2 distant lights approaching. Through the rain, I could make out that they belonged to 2 police officers. I hoped they could help us, and as I approached, one of them called out, "Are you Emma? Is this little one Lily?" I was surprised they knew our names, but I replied, "Yes, that's us." The officer then said, "Please come to the station with us." I wondered why we were being taken to the police station, but I followed them into the patrol car. We were freezing from being outside for so long, but the officers had brought large towels and offered us spare clothes at the station. As we drove, I asked how they knew where to find us. They said they would explain everything once we got to the station. Exhausted, I fell asleep and woke up when we arrived. Inside the police station, I was surprised to see Catherine and my uncle there. "Uncle, what are you doing here?" I asked. He explained that Bob had contacted him. Bob suspected I might be having problems with his mom, and since he was abroad, he wanted my uncle to keep an eye on things. My uncle had seen us in the rain earlier and, thinking Catherine's behavior was extreme, had reported it to the police. That's why the officers knew where to find us. Catherine was also asked to come to the police station. She sat on a sofa, glaring at me and complaining about her bad knee, saying if Bob were here, this wouldn't be happening. She was trying to defend herself, but the situation had escalated because Bob had asked my uncle for help. During discussions with the police, it became clear that there could be legal implications. I was advised to consider hiring a lawyer. Catherine argued that it was an overreaction, saying she just locked the door and didn't think she'd done anything wrong. But I couldn't forgive her for throwing me and a young child out into the torrential rain. My uncle defended us, explaining that I was the rightful owner of the house. Catherine argued that Bob, as the head of the household, was the owner, and now that he wasn't here, it should be hers. She was mistaken. Actually, my uncle runs a real estate business and got us a great deal on a condo. Bob had recommended putting the property in my name, and now I was grateful I followed his advice. Following my uncle's advice, I decided to hire a lawyer. The lawyer said evicting Catherine would be challenging, so placing her in a care facility might be the best option. I immediately called Bob to explain the situation. Bob hadn't expected things to get so complicated and said he would return from Japan to discuss it in person. He also mentioned considering placing Catherine in a care facility. Meanwhile, Catherine, even though she was at the police station, casually snacked on some crackers. Since I couldn't return to the house while Catherine was there, I stayed with my parents until Bob came back. Bob would return in a week, giving me time to think about our next steps. If Bob wouldn't support me, I thought divorce might be the only option. I regretted not seeking advice sooner. A week later, when Bob returned from Europe, he came to the house with Catherine. I moved back home from my parents' place. Bob's urgent return meant he had to go back to Europe soon and could only stay in Japan for a few days. We needed to discuss our next moves. I heard some things from Emma's uncle. Are they true? Catherine stubbornly denied any wrongdoing, claiming that I was scheming to evict her. Bob, who should have supported me, seemed more interested in Catherine's perspective. I handed in a voice recorder that I had been using. It contained recordings of Catherine berating me and evicting me. Bob asked, "Do you have any evidence of Emma plotting something?" Catherine didn't provide any. I admitted that, due to my busy schedule, I hadn't been able to keep up with everything. Bob played the recordings and heard Catherine's harsh words like, "Such a worthless wife. I wonder why he even married you." Catherine tried to defend herself, claiming the recordings were taken out of context and that she was just frustrated. But as Bob listened to more of the recordings, it became clear there were numerous instances of verbal abuse. Some of Catherine's behavior wasn't even captured by the recorder. Bob's hand shook with anger as he listened. Catherine looked guilt-ridden. Bob asked, "Mom, what's going on?" But she remained silent. Bob said, "If you won't answer, I'll assume it's all true. I need to protect Emma and Lily, and you understand that, right?" I had never seen Bob so angry before. Catherine, who probably saw this side of Bob for the first time, looked scared and didn't say anything. After that, we talked a lot until Bob returned to Europe. I told Bob that I couldn't live with Catherine anymore, especially with Lily around. I didn't want a repeat of what happened. Bob seemed to agree and thought about moving Catherine to a care facility. However, Catherine strongly disagreed, which made the situation even harder. I decided to sell a house because Catherine couldn't stay here anymore. I told her if she didn't want to go to the care facility, she would need to find another place to live. Catherine was very angry about the decision to sell the house. But Lily and I were planning to move to Europe because Bob regretted not being more present with us and wanted to be there for us in the future. I was nervous about living abroad, but knowing Bob would be with us made me feel better. Plus, Lily is only 2 years old and it would be good for her to learn and practice communication skills in Europe. So, selling the condo, which still had a mortgage, was the only choice we had. If we didn't sell the house, Catherine would have to pay the mortgage, but she's on a fixed income and can't afford it. Considering her future, someone needed to help her. Despite our efforts, Catherine was determined not to move into a care facility, so we had to put her in one against her will. Bob asked if I could handle the necessary arrangements while he went back to Europe. With help from others, I managed to get Catherine admitted to the facility. The staff kept me updated on her condition, and it seemed she wasn't doing well. She was causing trouble there and complaining about everything. Before going to Europe, I visited her to check on her, but she angrily asked why I put her in the facility. She also complained about the food, the uncomfortable beds, and the other residents. I apologized to the staff for her behavior, and they were very understanding. One staff member assured me that this kind of behavior is common and that they would keep me informed and contact me if anything important came up. Despite all the trouble Catherine was causing, they assured me they would handle it. As I headed to Europe, I couldn't help but worry about Catherine. When I arrived in Paris, Bob met me at the airport, and we went to our new apartment. I heard that rent in Paris is higher than in Texas, but since Bob's company helps with housing costs, we found a spacious and affordable place. Our neighbors are very friendly and have been kind to me, even though my French isn't perfect. Yesterday, a neighbor shared some wine and cheese with me, and I gave them some mac and cheese in return. I'm also learning French with Lily, and I've signed up for a language school. There are many Americans there, and I've made some friends. I'm really enjoying my life in Paris. Back in the States, I was always worried about Catherine, which made it hard to fully enjoy outings with friends. Here, I can relax and have leisurely lunches. My only concern now is Lily. She's still too young for kindergarten, which starts at age 5 here. I hope she picks up enough French by then. Fortunately, Lily seems to be learning quickly. I'm thinking about getting a job once Lily starts preschool. Bob says it's fine if I stay home, but living in Paris has made me want to explore more opportunities. I've made friends with a waitress at a nearby cafe, and she hinted there might be a job for me there. The cafe is popular among Americans and also attracts customers learning English. Although there might be challenges ahead, Bob and I are communicating better, and I feel more confident in expressing my feelings. I believe we'll face everything as a family. Right now, I'm happier than I've ever been.